Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be doing a throwback review of the Transformers Prime Voyager class Starseeker Thundertron. Now there's two main reasons why I wanted to take a look at this figure. One being is I wanted to see how well this figure has held up over time, and two, I wanted to see what they should keep from the original Transformers Prime release and what can they improve upon for the new Legacy United release. But let me know think of this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? Let's now take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have a really nice artwork shot of Thundertron in his line mode with the Starseeker symbol done in white. We have the Robots in Disguise logo done in black text with Thundertron done in white text with Starseeker done in black text again. We have a huge plastic window showing off the figure on the packaging. We actually do have a trimmy circle and open area in the packaging. You can actually stick your finger inside and press this button and pretty much activate the accessory. It actually adds a bit of a glow or kind of a red light on the accessory. If you can't see it right now, I'll go into greater detail with that accessory and that feature a little bit later in the video, of course, once the accessory is actually out of the packaging. We also do have the Transformers Prime logo at the top of the box. If you're wondering why the Transformers Prime logo is on this figure's packaging, well, interesting enough, for quite some time actually, it was almost at a point where Thundertron was about to be in the Transformers Prime series, but unfortunately was taken out at the last second, which was pretty unfortunate. But if we do turn to the side here, we have a really cool workshop of Thundertron in his robot mode with his sword. We also do have Thundertron done in black text and a brief bio. Also, of course, we actually have his stats at the bottom of the box. I'll quickly read this brief bio. So it says, ages ago, Thundertron swore that the creatures that caused the destruction of his world would pay for their crimes. Since then, he has actually wandered space in search of his revenge. His ship primed, his crew willing, and at long last, Cybertron is in his sights. And on the back of the box, we have a product shot of him and his robot, his line mode, and several small little text kind of showing off and describing several features of part of this figure that I'll show at some point in this review. We also do have another Starseeker symbol at that top corner there done in white. We also do have, of course, Thundertron in black text with Starseeker done in red text. We also do have Voyager class. And on the final side, we have another really cool artwork shot of Thundertron in his robot mode with his sword, some really cool lightning, and that same Starseeker symbol and Voyager class. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. So here we have Thundertron in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with the head sculpt. We have some really nice turquoise blue for the entire beard. We have some really nice gold for the beard as well, with some really nice dark red for the eyes, some white for the entire helmet section, with some more blue and white for this entire top kind of forehead panel piece. We actually have some really nice blue light piping at the back of the head as well, and I do like the really cool gold claws at the shoulders. And I do have to say this now, I do like this, but unfortunately on this figure, they never actually tabbed in place. They kind of just sat there, so you really just relied on the tolerances of that entire hinge to make sure it wouldn't just flop around and kind of fly around everywhere. And luckily enough, the tolerances for this entire section is actually pretty good, so it does stay in place, but I do apologize if it moves. It just never tabs in. And of course, you have some really nice kind of see-through blue, kind of clear blue for the entire form. And if you are worried if you do get this figure, or if you may already have this figure, about it cracking, I've actually owned this figure for quite a while now. I actually have 2 copies of this figure, and they've never cracked in this area. But of course, there is some other problems that I will mention tolerance wise and QC wise a little bit later in the review. But we do have some gray for the hands, and I do like all these really cool gold angles and spikes and details at the legs, with some more blue and silver at the knee there. And I do just love all of the layered panels. It kind of gives sort of a night kind of old feel to the figure. It just really works. And we do have the tail there, but I'll take a look at the back in just a second. I do like the mismatched design for the legs and the ankles. So as you can see, he does have a peg leg, because if you don't know, Thundertron is a pirate. And if you don't already know, my channel is Thundertron Reviews and Podcasts. So you probably just connected the dots, or maybe you already connected the dots before. But yeah, that's this is the figure that kind of made my channel, that really just made me want to have that name, because I just always really liked his design, his backstory. But just getting back to the figure here, I do like the mismatched design and the peg leg. But if you don't like the peg leg, you actually can take one of his accessories, the claw, and you can actually transform that into his other foot. But I'll get into that in just a sec. But I do like the really cool silver and kind of mechanical stuff. I've always actually had a pretty cool backstory where I always said that his foot was damaged. This foot was damaged, so there's no like gold or anything, so it looks different. It's just like, pure metal, like he just fixed himself, but it can't look the same, of course, as this side like it used to look. So I always came up with a pretty interesting backstory. And of course, they do have the really cool kind of side skirt pieces, or kind of a cape piece there. And I do love this really cool kind of spray painted kind of war paint effect. It's a really cool kind of faded white blue effect there, with some nice golden blue at the top. And if we do flip it around, we do have a really nice Starseeker symbol, because if you don't know, Thundertron is the leader of the Starseekers. And I think that looks pretty cool back there. And we do have the tail, which is made of rubber, and it's actually kind of posable. It never really holds its place because it's rubber, so if you do, move it there, it just kind of falls back down, but that's pretty cool back there. And overall, actually, for how old this figure is, because, this figure was made, during Transformers Prime actually airing on TV, it's actually pretty clean. Not much kibble, not much junk, just a few hinges for the claws, but overall, actually pretty clean and well put away. But now, for articulation, the arm can move out and in, forward and back, and you can move the claws out of the way to accommodate the articulation. And of course, the shoulder panel can move up and down as well. That definitely could be just a tad bit more secure. It's quite loose. There is a bicep rotation and elbow bend to a very good degree. There's actually an elbow bend back, but that's mostly due to transformation. There is nothing out of the hand. It can't open or close. There is no wrist rotation. And the head, of course, the head can actually move in and up, mostly due to transformation. And this little panel here at the forehead can also move up and down. It's actually kind of hard to move because it's so small, but if you want to, you can actually move that down, again, due to transformation. But I've actually seen people actually use that as like a mask, kind of like a battle mask, to make it look a bit different. You can do that if you want to. So there's a few kind of areas of customization that I will show in and out through this review. And of course, sim articulation on the other arm. And if we do move the arms out of the way, there is nothing out of the waist, unfortunately. I really do hope the new Legacy United version does have a waist rotation. And of course, these little skirt pieces are actually in a ball joint, so of course they can move forward, back, and of course out to the side and in. The legs can kick forward, back, and of course out to the side. There is rotation at the top of the leg, a knee bend to a very good degree. And as for the foot, of course, I don't have the foot on this side right now, so I'm just going to show you on this one. And the articulation overall, of course, although there is a peg leg on this one and of course a foot on that one, and the molding is different, the articulation overall is pretty much the same. The only difference is the foot, because of course this is using a post, while of course the other one is actually using a ball joint. So there is a bit more movement and actually posability with this foot rather than that one. But all the other areas like the knee, the top of the leg, that's all the same. So of course, since it's a ball joint, it can actually move down and of course up, and actually slightly pivot side to side. And that is pretty much it for articulation. Let me just quickly straighten up the figure. Overall, pretty good, for how old the figure is, but definitely there is some room for improvement. I definitely think the Legacy United one can be better, considering of course there's quite a few years gap. I think this was from like maybe 2013, 2015, around there. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it's been a while. I think it's been almost 10 years, or maybe just at 10 years. So I definitely think there is some room for improvement for quite a few aspects of the figure. That being said, if I was just to, not even take into account that there's going to be a new Thundertron figure, even if there wasn't one, I still think you should get this one because it's a really good figure on its own. I do think the new release will be better though. But as for tolerances and QC, I've actually already mentioned some of that. I think it's overall pretty good, but I do have to say, as I mentioned before, I have actually do own 2 copies of this figure, and I had to get a new one. This is the new one. I actually have had it in box for quite a while now, and I just opened it a couple days ago. There is already stress marks on there, and there's one major problem with the panels, which pop off a lot, but I'll mention that a little bit later in the review. I'm really just going to mention kind of the QC and a few of the tolerances used, but these panels have some major problems, again, that I will mention a little bit later. But there is already some stress marks on there. Maybe you can see some inside there. There's also some inside there and scattered across the figure. So unfortunately, I guess just the quality control, the QC just isn't the best on this figure. I hope it won't be the same case, with the new one. Of course, as I mentioned before, it is kind of an old figure, so probably the plastic quality isn't the best, it could be. I actually got this new one hoping it wouldn't be that way. I just thought, my old copy that I've had, since it originally released, this I got on eBay, and I've had it in box for a while, but the original one, I bought it when it first came out, when Transformers Prime was still going on, and that one, I had for many, many years, and I just thought, oh, it has a few stress marks, because I've had it for, 8 years or such, but I think it's just the figure. I think that's just what happens. Really, the only way I think you can probably prevent that is just not to transform it or keep it in box, which I might actually get a 3rd copy and just keep it in box because I want it, nice and pristine. But there is a few quality control, tolerance issues. But like the main joints, like the arms and the legs, I think they're overall pretty good. I think they're really good. As for accessories, he does come with this claw weapon, which you can probably already guess looks vaguely familiar to the other foot. So this is the foot, which can of course be stored as the foot or this claw weapon, which there is a post, and of course there is a mechtic port on either arm. You can just plug this into place like that, and you can form this really cool claw arm there. I do quite like that, and I'm pretty sure the new one does have that same function, which I think is pretty cool. I'm definitely going to store that new one and this one like this. I actually really do like the peg leg, but I think that looks pretty cool. But if you don't really like the peg leg, if you want it to be a bit more stable, you know, not have a mismatched foot design, you can remove the claw, and it's actually a very simple transformation. You just get these two spike pieces, and you just hinge these forward, and of course just make sure that mechtic port there, or that post there, is hinged back, and of course there is a post here and a port, and that just plugs into place like that, and there we have both feet fully attached there, and that's, you know, kind of the two ways you can store that weapon. So as for the final one, this one is kind of a gimmick thing. You know, that's kind of the main reason why, you know, that's probably the main reason why I think they're making a new Legacy United one, because they're going to be very different figures. This one's going to be, I think, a bit more, you know, kind of play, more functions, and the new one is going to be a bit more modern. Like, as most of us know, there hasn't been that many, you know, spring-loaded gimmicks, many light gimmicks or sound gimmicks recently, you know, from Stu Series, Legacy, and so on. So this will definitely be probably appeal to more, you know, people who like those gimmicks. I'm kind of in the middle. Sometimes I like the gimmicks, sometimes I don't, because most things I've had that have those gimmicks usually tend to break. So to be honest, I would probably prefer a figure without a gimmick, because I don't want it to break, rather than, you know, having one with the gimmick but it's going to break over time. But so it is actually going to be kind of nice to have two different Thundertrons that are, you know, quite different. One's a bit more for play, and one's a bit, you know, more of a modern take. But here is the accessories. So it actually has sort of two different features. There is a light feature, and there's actually sort of a spring-loaded feature. I'm going to try and actually not, you know, whack Thundertron here, but if you do push this entire blue section back, it will actually bring the blade forward, and it will reveal a light there. Hopefully you can see it. It's a very faint kind of pinkish red. I'm not sure if you can see it. Hopefully it's coming across good on camera, but that is the feature. So why I was saying is it doesn't always work very well is the blade is really supposed to align with these two or these three blades right here, so it sometimes never really makes it all the way. Of course you can kind of move it yourself, but it does kind of bounce back because it's on a spring. And again, as I said, I've owned two copies of this figure, and the gimmick has never really worked. I think it was just for at the time they just didn't build it the best, but I think it's fun. You know, I think it's fun for what they were trying to do. Just the execution, you know, didn't really turn out the best. But you can store this just like the foot, you know, the claw weapon, using that mechtic port, and you can store that on either arm, you know, because both of them have that mechtic port there. And there is actually one on the back if you want to, and you can still press this, you know, to trigger the gimmick there if you want to. But that is it for accessories. So there is a customization option in Thundertron's robot mode where you can actually display the two main panels on the chest in two different ways. One way being a bit more compact, which you've already seen so far in this review, and the other way is a bit more spread out, kind of angled out, which is definitely my preferred way to display them, which is a nice option, and I do hope this option is still present on the new release, the Legacy United Thundertron. But one major problem I have with these panels is they have a tendency to pop off constantly all the time. I've actually owned this figure twice. I have two copies of it, and both copies do that same problem where they just pop off all the time when I'm displaying it, when I'm transforming it. So I really do hope for the future new release, the Legacy United Thundertron, that is not the case. Starting off our comparisons, here we have the Voyager class Thundertron compared alongside the Prime Universe Deluxe class RC, and I have to say, it actually looks very cool to see an old classic, you know, original Prime character to a new modern day Legacy Prime Universe character or figure. And I think they look pretty cool side by side. I really can't say anything as of scale because Thundertron never appeared in the Transformers Prime TV series. He was supposed to, but it was unfortunately cut out last second, so I'm not really sure if this was, you know, how he was supposed to scale. I'm not sure how big he was compared to RC in that continuity, but they do look pretty cool side by side. And now for one final comparison, here we have the Voyager class Thundertron compared alongside the Prime Universe Deluxe class Knockout. Here we have Thundertron in his saber-toothed tiger mode. Let's take a look at the details. So starting at the very front, we have some really nice gold for the claws or the nails, looking pretty scary and menacing. And it's like the blue striping going all the way back to this kind of midsection there. And of course, we do have a Starseeker logo kind of emblem on the side of the alt mode, which looks pretty cool. I do hope there's a few present on the new Legacy Uniter release. And I do love this really cool kind of spray painted effect on these little side kind of skirt pieces. Of course, it was the skirt piece or kind of the side hip piece in the robot mode, but you could probably imagine these are like, you know, huge spikes kind of coming off the saber-toothed tiger mode, which is pretty cool. But I do like that kind of spray painted design there. And actually, as for the entire head and face, I do like all the blue striping and the really cool spikes. I do like the small little gold highlights and details there, and the mouth actually is open. I will kind of discuss and cover the articulation of the head a little bit later, but I'm just going to say now it's not very good where the head is concerned, but I do like the teeth sculpted in. We actually do have a bit of a kind of a mane going down to this bottom section there with a really nice turquoise blue and dark blue there. And if we do look at this very back section, we actually do have a tail. And if you're wondering the material of the tail, it's actually kind of rubber, so you can kind of bend it, you know, move it however you wish if you want to. It doesn't really stay, so I do hope there's a proper tail for the new Legacy Uniter release. If it's rubber, that's fine. It's just it doesn't really hold its shape with this older release, so it's kind of unfortunate. But I do like the nice golden blue for the hind legs or the feet from the robot mode. That is probably one of my biggest complaints about this saber-toothed tiger mode, is that there's not really much transformation involved with the legs. You really just kind of rotate them. If you skip the transformation from robot to this alt mode, of course, make sure you go back and watch that. But when you do, you'll see that you really just kind of rotate at the top of the leg and the foot, and that's pretty much it. The majority of the transformation is really involved with this main front section, like his arms, of course, and his head, which is typical. I think that typically does happen with most figures. I'm not surprised by that, but they probably could have added a few extra steps, because you can obviously tell, you know, those are the feet, these are the knees. So I do hope for the new release, maybe they can have a bit more of an involving transformation for the legs specifically. But that is it for details. So now for articulation, definitely another area that could be improved upon. Of course, you do have to keep in mind this is kind of an old figure. You know, this is when Transformers Prime was, you know, still airing. So I would say, I think almost about 10 years ago now, I think something like that. It's been quite a while. So of course, the standards of articulation and our expectations of articulation definitely has changed over time. So of course, I cannot judge this figure the same as I would judge, you know, a modern day figure, but it definitely could be better, because for the entire pretty much head, there is zero articulation. There's no ball joint. There's no movement in the head. The mouth actually is stock. It cannot open or close. I guess they somewhat kind of escaped or kind of passed with that, because the mouth is kind of permanently sculpted open. So I'm actually at least glad they did that. You know, if it was permanently closed, I wouldn't have liked that, but at least they actually have it open there, which does look cool. And as for the other areas of the transformation, pretty much the legs, the hind legs, are pretty much the exact same transformation as the robot mode legs, because as I previously mentioned, there's not much transformation going on, so they pretty much stay the same. And, you know, there's a bit of movement with the tail, as I discussed, and these little side skirt pieces, those are actually in a ball joint, as I showed before, so those are kind of movable. Really, the only added bits of articulation, I guess, are the claws or the front paws here. So, of course, there's a hinge at the claw, and there's actually a ball joint at this main section here, but it's actually tabbed in place, so if you do want to use that, you will have to untab it. And there's also a hinge at this top section, so there's kind of like 3 points of articulation at this main section there, which I think is pretty good, but definitely some other areas could be better, and I do hope the new release can improve upon that and just make it even better. And as for accessory storage, his small little blade piece can just store on the top. It's at post and port systems that'll just plug into place like that, which I guess is okay. I do have to cut some slack because it's such, you know, an oddly shaped weapon. You know, it's a huge sword and like a huge box. You know, it has that, you know, flipping mechanism. So they wanted to put it in a place where you could still use that. And technically, yes, you still can use that feature in this mode. But as I showed before, it doesn't always, you know, come fully forward. Unfortunately, on my copy, I guess I could just be lucky, or it could be everyone's copy, but that's probably why it's just on top. But maybe it would have been nice if they could have had like 2 options, you know, one that's a bit more tucked away and one that's, you know, on the top like this. But that is it for accessory storage. So now for one quick alt mode comparison, here he is with another Transformers Prime figure. Here he is with the Legacy Prime Universe Knockouts, and I think they look pretty cool side by side. And let me know in the comments if, I'm assuming they're probably going to do more Prime Universe or Transformers Prime characters next year in 2024 in the Legacy United line. Which characters would you like to see? If I were to choose, I would love to see maybe a Commander class or a Leader class Predaking. That would probably be like a dream figure of mine, because they made Thundertron. That was at the top of my list, so definitely next in line I would love to see a Predaking. Probably that should be a Commander class size in my opinion. But that is it for comparisons and this alt mode. Let's now get down to the final thoughts. So now for my final thoughts on the Transformers Prime Voyager class Starseeker Thundertron. Starting in the Roman mode, I love Thundertron's white, gold, and blue deco, combined with the awesome ferocious tiger or lion head on the chest, and the cool sharp claws at the shoulders. As for accessories, Thundertron comes with one sword that has this cool gimmick where a red light will turn on and the blade will swing out. Unfortunately, I own 2 copies of this figure, and the gimmick has never really seemed to work very well. Another feature is where you can remove one of Thundertron's feet, which can then be transformed into a claw, and also give the figure his signature pirate peg leg. Now, one major complaint that brings this figure down is the QC. I recently purchased a brand new sealed copy of this figure, and it already has several stress marks across the figure. Articulation is overall pretty good considering how old the figure is, but I think the new Legacy United release can do better. The tolerances of the figure are good, but the 2 panels on the chest pop off constantly, which I hope is not going to happen on the new release. As for transformation, overall pretty fun and simple, but I think the legs could be transformed more and look different from the robot mode, because all you do is rotate them. As for Thundertron's line mode, I love the scary line face with the sharp claws, but I think the accessory storage could be better because all you do is put the sword on top of the alt mode. What do you think of this figure? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time.